Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name is Rubidium. Today we are looking at the C70 and the 5 different methods to stabilize the footage. We're going to look at the digital stabilization in the camera, stabilization on the lens, gimbal stabilization, mechanical like Steadicam stabilization with the Proaim Flycam Galaxy, and then we're going to look at post-stabilization and how many of those methods you combine to get the smoothest shots possible without destroying your muscles. Stick around, find out. So being quite a light little camera, there is more shake in the C70 footage, or at least my C70 footage, than there has been on the C200 or C500 Mark II footage, because it's a smaller camera, so the weight doesn't cancel out these small micro vibrations of your breathing, of your heart, of your hands. So it's great that the C70 has in-body digital stabilization. People get mad on YouTube when I call it IBIS. So it helps quite a lot, but it doesn't really take out vertical movement. It doesn't take out a lot of the movement of walking. It takes out quite a bit of the movement of your body as you're panning and doing stable shots. It works much the same as lens stabilization, which was originally a photographic device to stop you blurring your shots as you hit the shutter. But the good news, right now I have the Canon EF-S 17-55 on here with a cheap little Miyake EF to RF adapter. And I thought I would run a variety of tests. And I am by no means the greatest camera operator in history. I'm not particularly stable. I'm certainly not a qualified Steadicam operator, as we'll get to in a second. But what I want to do is run a series of tests. So what I did was I took this camera, and with no stabilization on, I shot walking towards a target, walking towards an object, and circling around a stable character. It's just a light on a pole. I guess you call it circle strafing in Call of Duty, which is a pretty common way to use stabilization, or pretty common way to use a moving camera, and very, very tricky to do. So you see that the non-stabilized shots are very jerky. I did try and hold it as still as I could, but I walked at a normal pace and tried to take the vibration out with my hands, and as you can see, did not do very well. Next, I turned on the in-body stabilization of the C70. It takes out some of the smaller movements, but as you can see, the walking, the moving up and down, even though I'm trying to dampen that, is still very much there. So then I turned on the camera stabilization and the lens stabilization. This is definitely an improvement, and you could probably use this in some shots of a film or documentary, but it's not exactly beautiful. Next, I threw the camera on my Crane 2S, which mounts up very, very quickly. It's nice, small, compact body, and I left on the in-body and the lens stabilization. And you can see here, absolutely buttery smooth, even though I'm not trying very hard or walking very slowly. I'm not shooting at 60p. Even the circle strafe is very, very nice, in my opinion. I would definitely put this in a film. I should say that in all of these shots, I had the autofocus on, and in the nice, bright, well-exposed room, nice, bright room with the camera with correct exposure, it shot really, really well. So why not just stick with this? We have 3 types of stabilization: lens, body, and electronic, let's call it. The problem is that this camera, even though it's not that light, to hold in one hand for any length of time is very heavy. Certainly not an all-day thing to do, although I know plenty of people that do it. You can get 2-handed gimbals, which distribute their weight over 2 hands. I'm still not a fan of them. I feel like it's more work than filmmaking should be. So I got my hands on this, essentially a Steadicam arm. It is the Flycam Galaxy made by Proaim. It is very affordable for what it is. It's a dual spring stabilized arm attached to a vest, and it's around $400, under $400. I got the optional gimbal mount for it. And I tried this a few different ways, tried a few different adjustments on the spring. Now, this does let you rotate the camera like this, but you can't go into sort of a low slung mode like you could if you were just holding a gimbal. You can't go into flashlight mode. Basically, the handle of the gimbal has to stay vertical. That means, though, that you can get shots like we were trying to do here with almost no effort. In fact, it is much, much, much more comfortable to use than the gimbal alone. And I can see myself, after a little bit of practice, wearing this for at least a couple of hours without, hating life and wanting to pass out. It is a really interesting way to get the advantages of the gimbal with some advantages of the Steadicam without needing to be qualified as a Steadicam, because the gimbal's doing most of your work for you, and you're just using the Flycam Galaxy to take the weight of the rig. But unlike some of the over-the-shoulder rigs, the tension rigs, the sort of Bowflex rigs, it doesn't make you bigger size-wise. It doesn't make it hard to get through doors. It doesn't raise things above your head like an easy rig does. So as a result, you can get some nice shots moving through houses and doors in small places like you would with a gimbal. If I was going to shoot a live event, this is definitely something I would want to get better with. If you want to use your C70 on a gimbal for a church thing or a wedding thing, event cinematography basically, this is definitely worth checking out because it is a lot easier to use than a single-handed gimbal. As you can see, my first attempts at it weren't smoother than the gimbal. You did get a little bit of the footstep noise or footstep shake into the shot, and the circle strafe, not perfect by any exaggeration, though it definitely was, I definitely got better at it after a couple of tries. I think this was my third try. So for short little one-off shots, 10 minutes or less in total operating time, just the crane is a really, really good solution. But if you want to shoot continually on the gimbal and you don't have anywhere to put it down if you're outside, the Flycam Galaxy with the gimbal is a great solution and got me some really, really smooth footage. We live in a golden age of filmmaking. This thing, the first Steadicam rig was $100,000 plus. This is under $400 for a very nicely made, pretty compact adjustable vest and a very rigid construction, heavy, well-built arm. Proaim are out of India. I've reviewed some of their stuff before. They're really, really great products for the price. That is my look at stabilizing the C70, combining different stabilizations for a smoother shot. And if you still want a shot that's stable without using all this extra gear, here is a shot on the C70 in 60p, but slowed down and stabilized in post. It gives you almost the gimbal effect without any of the gear. The limitation on this is that you can't use it for performance because you're not going to be able to use dialogue at 2.5 times slowed down. But for nature stuff, or maybe even for wedding stuff, there's a lot you can get away with the stabilization on the lens and the camera, and then enhancing that in post. If you're interested in the C70 or any of the Canon cinema cameras, check out canonmasterclass.com. There is a link below this video. I have masterclasses for the C70, the C200, C300 Mark III, and C500 Mark II, as well as grading courses and cinematography courses to help you get the most out of these cameras. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.